What if the most fascinating figures from across time could meet for the first time in the hereafter, free to speak as they never could in life? Welcome to History's Afterlife. Two monarchs, bound by blood, yet separated by decades and philosophy. Henry VIII, the king who shattered England's religious foundation, executed two wives and died desperate for a male heir. A man of appetites, for women, for power, for the very idea of absolute rule. And Elizabeth I, his daughter by Anne Boleyn, the woman he beheaded when Elizabeth was barely 2 years old. She would become England's Virgin Queen, ruling for 45 years with a blend of political cunning and careful restraint that her father never mastered. Where Henry was impulsive, Elizabeth was calculating. Where he sought to dominate through force, she learned to survive through wit. Today, father and daughter meet in a space beyond time, carrying with them the weight of their choices and the echoes of their very different reigns.
Well, well, my daughter. You've grown somewhat since I last paid you proper attention.
Your Majesty, though I confess I'm surprised you recognise me at all. 2 years old when you had my mother's head struck off.
Still sharp-tongued, I see. Anne's daughter, indeed. Though you've learned to wield that tongue more strategically than she ever did.
Strategy, yes. A lesson learned early. When one's legitimacy hangs by the thread of a father's whim, one learns the value of careful words.
Careful words? You? The woman who told Parliament she had the heart and stomach of a king? That hardly sounds careful to me.
On the contrary, every word calculated. I needed them to see strength without threatening their masculine pride. You, father, simply demanded submission.
And it worked, did it not? I was obeyed, feared, respected.
Were you? Thomas More died rather than submit to your will. So did John Fisher, and how many others chose death over acknowledgement of your supremacy?
Thomas More, Henry's former Lord Chancellor, brilliant humanist and author of Utopia, who refused to acknowledge Henry as head of the English Church. John Fisher, the Bishop of Rochester, an aged scholar who similarly chose execution rather than betray his conscience. Both men were beheaded in 1535, their deaths marking Henry's willingness to destroy even his most loyal servants when they would not bend completely to his will.
Martyrs make for poor conversation. They died for their principles, I'll grant them that, but I died a king, absolute and unquestioned.
You died isolated and suspicious, trusting no one. Your court lived in terror of your moods. Is that truly the legacy you intended?
In 1546, the year before Henry's death, the French ambassador wrote that the king had become the most dangerous and cruel man in the world. Yet Elizabeth, who inherited the same throne, would be remembered as good Queen Bess. What accounts for such different paths from such similar beginnings?
You speak as one who never faced the challenges I did. England was weak when I took the crown, surrounded by enemies. I had to make our nation strong, feared.
And I inherited a nation torn apart by religious conflict. Your legacy, I might add, teetering on the edge of civil war, with a treasury emptied by your wars and building projects. Yet I chose unity over division.
Your religious settlement, you mean? That masterpiece of compromise. I have no desire to make windows into men's souls, was it not? Rather convenient when decisive action was required.
Elizabeth's religious settlement, a carefully crafted middle way between Catholic and Protestant extremes. She restored Protestant worship, but kept bishops and ceremony. Most crucially, she chose not to persecute people for their private beliefs, only requiring outward conformity to the established church. It was pragmatic tolerance in an age of religious warfare. A stark contrast to her father's violent swings between Catholic and Protestant policies.
Convenient? No, father. Wise. You demanded men's souls and lost their hearts. I allowed them to keep their private thoughts and earned their devotion. Which of us left England stronger?
Stronger? Child, you inherited strength. I left England independent, free from Rome's interference, master of its own church, its own destiny. When I took the throne, England was a minor player, overshadowed by France and Spain. The Pope could dictate our policies. Foreign princes could mock our weakness. I changed all that.
Through violence and terror.
Through necessity. You think your moderate approach would have worked against Pope Clement VII? Against Charles V and his armies? I broke the chains that bound England to foreign powers. Every choice you had as queen, every diplomatic maneuver, every calculated gesture was possible only because I first made England truly sovereign.
And in the process, you nearly tore the kingdom apart. Your independence came at the cost of...
Of what? Of comfort? Of avoiding difficult decisions? Elizabeth, when I declared myself supreme head of the church, half of Europe wanted to invade us. I faced excommunication, rebellion, the threat of crusade. Yet, I held firm. I built the Royal Navy that you later used to defeat Spain. I fortified our coasts. I filled the treasury with monastic wealth.
Wealth you then spent on wars and palaces.
Investments in England's greatness. You speak of my building projects with scorn, but they showed the world that England was no longer a backward kingdom. My court rivaled Versailles. My palaces matched any in Europe. A king must project power, must demonstrate strength, or his enemies will perceive weakness.
And your enemies did perceive something. Not weakness, but instability. Your volatile nature made England unpredictable.
Unpredictable, yes. Do you know what that meant? It meant foreign powers could never be certain how I might react. They had to take England seriously, had to consider our interests. Your careful diplomacy worked because they already knew the Tudor name commanded respect. Respect I earned through decisive action.
Decisive action? Is that what you call executing two wives?
I call it securing the succession. You mock my marriages, but without them, without my relentless pursuit of a male heir, the Tudor line would have died with me. Yes, I made hard choices. Yes, I destroyed those who threatened England's future. But I did what kings must do. I put the realm above personal sentiment.
Personal sentiment? Father, You destroyed Anne Boleyn, my mother, because she couldn't give you sons.
I destroyed Anne Boleyn because she committed treason, because she endangered the stability I had worked to build. And Catherine Howard, she betrayed not just me, but the crown itself. A queen's virtue is the kingdom's virtue. Their failures were England's failures.
The charges against Anne Boleyn, adultery, incest with her brother, plotting the king's death, are now widely regarded by historians as fabricated, constructed to give Henry legal justification for ridding himself of a wife who had failed to produce a male heir. Even at the time, many observers doubted the evidence. The case against Catherine Howard, while more substantiated, similarly served Henry's immediate political needs.
How convenient that your political needs always aligned with your personal desires.
And how convenient that your political needs allowed you to remain unmarried. You turned your spinsterhood into statecraft, made a virtue of what might have been seen as failure. But don't pretend your choices were purely selfless. You kept power by sharing it with no one, not husband, not heir, not counsel. At least I took risks for England's future.
Risks? You nearly destroyed the future you claimed to have secured. When you died, England was religiously divided, financially strained, internationally isolated.
Anne, absolutely independent, free to choose its own path. Yes, I left problems, but I also left possibilities. The England you ruled was my creation, Elizabeth. Every policy you enacted, every alliance you formed, every enemy you faced, all of it built upon the foundation I laid. You think your careful reign possible without my revolutionary one?
You left England bleeding. Catholic against Protestant, family against family. I spent my reign healing those wounds.
By avoiding the hard choices. By refusing to marry, to secure the succession. You left England without an heir. The very problem I spent my life solving.
Did you solve it, though? You had a son, true. Edward, brilliant and devout, dead at 15. Then Mary, who tried to drag England back to Rome through fire and execution. Then me, Anne Boleyn's bastard, as you once proclaimed. Your solution brought 40 years of uncertainty before my reign even began.
Henry's obsession with securing the Tudor line led him through 6 marriages and numerous political crises. Yet it was Elizabeth, the daughter he once declared illegitimate, who would bring the greatest stability to the Tudor dynasty. As she said to Parliament in 1559, "I will have but one mistress and no master. A queen so married is but the name of a queen, and is subject to her husband. I would rather be a beggar and single than a queen and married."
You speak of stability, but what of greatness? What of glory? I made England matter in Europe. My court was magnificent, my presence commanding. Men trembled when I entered a room.
And I made England respected. Not feared, respected. My court was brilliant, not merely magnificent. Poets flourished, exploration expanded. Our navy became supreme. Men didn't tremble in my presence. They competed for my attention.
Competition for your attention, yes. You played them against each other like a master puppeteer. Leicester, Essex, Raleigh. But you never gave yourself, did you? Never truly trusted.
Trust? An interesting word from the man who executed Thomas Cromwell after years of faithful service. Who turned against Thomas Wolsey when Rome wouldn't grant his desires? When did you last trust without reservation, Father?
I trusted you would understand the burden of kingship, the loneliness of absolute power.
Loneliness, yes, but not because of power, because of how you wielded it. You demanded love through fear, loyalty through terror. I earned devotion through, well, perhaps through calculated mystery, but at least through understanding that a monarch serves the realm, not the reverse.
Serves? A king serves no one.
And there, Father, lies the difference between us. A king may serve no one, but a successful ruler serves everyone. Every speech, every law, every marriage refusal, all in service to England's needs, not my own desires.
Tell me truthfully, daughter, was there never a moment when you wished for companionship? Children? A normal woman's life?
Many moments. But I learned early that what I wished for and what England needed were rarely the same thing. You taught me that lesson, actually, when you chose your desires over my mother's life.
In her final speech to Parliament, Elizabeth declared, "Though God hath raised me high, yet this I count the glory of my crown, that I have reigned with your loves." It was a philosophy that would have been alien to her father, who saw love and fear as the same currency.
Your mother, Anne, was magnificent, you know. Brilliant, passionate, impossible to ignore. But she forgot her place, began to think she was my equal rather than my subject.
Perhaps she was your equal. Perhaps that's what frightened you.
Frightened? Henry Tudor frightened of a woman?
Frightened of a woman who wouldn't bow completely to your will. You could command her body, her public loyalty, even her presence at court. But her mind, her spirit, those remained her own. So you destroyed her.
I needed a son. She gave me only you. And then, disappointments.
Only me? Father, I gave England 45 years of peace and prosperity. I defeated the Spanish Armada, expanded English influence, and left the realm stronger than any Tudor before or after. Was I truly such a disappointment?
The Spanish Armada of 1588, Philip II's massive invasion fleet of 130 ships, carrying 30,000 men, launched to restore Catholic rule to England and punish Elizabeth for supporting Protestant rebels in the Netherlands. Its defeat by English naval tactics, storms, and sheer audacity transformed England from a regional power into a maritime empire and proved that Elizabeth's careful policies could triumph over Europe's mightiest force.
No, you were not a disappointment. You became everything I dreamed a Tudor could be. Strong, intelligent, absolute in authority, but unmarried, without issue.
Without issue? My issue was England itself. I was married to the realm, and my children were every English man and woman who prospered under my rule. Your children were wars, schisms, and graves.
That's harsh judgment from a daughter to her father.
Perhaps. But you taught me to value truth over comfort, did you not? You certainly never spared others harsh truths when it suited your purposes.
I did what was necessary. England needed strength, needed independence, needed
Needed a father who could show love without demanding submission in return. But you never learned that lesson, did you?
A letter survives from young Elizabeth to her father, written when she was 11. I shall most humbly beseech your majesty that I may, as I have done before, use few words, but that the thing I go about may speedily be granted by your majesty. Even as a child, she had learned to navigate Henry's temperament with careful precision.
You think me incapable of love?
I think you incapable of love without possession. You loved me, perhaps, but as a reflection of your own glory. You loved my mother until she ceased to serve your needs perfectly. Even your affection for Mary turned to frustration when she couldn't be the son you required.
And you? Did you never love anyone completely?
I loved England completely. Everything else was conditional, measured against that great love.
That sounds terribly lonely.
No more lonely than dying surrounded by courtiers who feared your slightest word, wondering which of them you might turn against next.
You've grown wise, daughter. Wiser than I ever was, perhaps.
Wisdom born of survival. You could afford to be impulsive. You were a king from birth. I had to earn every ounce of respect, every moment of security. Your mistakes cost others their lives. Mine would have cost me everything.
Do you think England remembers me kindly?
They remember you, certainly. Great Harry, the king who broke with Rome, who made England master of its own destiny. But kindly? That depends on whether they focus on your achievements or your methods.
And you? How does history remember Elizabeth?
As Gloriana, I'm told. The Virgin Queen who ushered in a golden age. Though I suspect they'd forgotten how carefully that golden age was constructed. How much calculation lay behind every glittering moment.
We are both legends, then. You, the wise queen. I, the magnificent tyrant.
Perhaps. But we were also both lonely rulers who paid a dear price for power. The difference is what we chose to do with that loneliness.
Yes, I see that now. You used yours to understand your subjects better. I let mine turn to suspicion and rage.
In the end, perhaps that's what separates great rulers from merely powerful ones. Not the absence of human frailty, but what they do with it. Henry let his needs consume his kingdom. Elizabeth let her kingdom consume her needs. Both paid a price for their choices, but only one left behind a legacy of wisdom alongside power. As father and daughter, they shared the same royal blood and the same terrible isolation of absolute authority. How they wielded that authority and to what end remains the measure by which history judges them both.